How's it going, guys? Welcome to Onslaught Reviews. My name is Adam, and today we're talking about scary stories to tell in the dark. Alright, so, when I was a kid, I grew up with the original book. So, when I heard that they were making this movie, I was both really excited and a little bit nervous to see it, because, a lot of these stories I hold really near and dear to my heart as a horror fan. I got into horror, when I was a kid reading these books. So, yeah. Very excited, a little bit nervous. But coming out of this movie, I was absolutely blown away. I really enjoyed this movie. To sum it up real quick, this movie reminds me of like a darker version of that Goosebumps movie with a little bit of Stephen King flair thrown in. I really enjoyed this movie, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Alright, first off, I really enjoyed the way they did this story. It sounds a bit cliche, but I've always really liked the idea of that, small town USA with that dark kind of past, Something about that always really kind of grabbed me as a kid. It's like this classic way of telling stories that I've always really enjoyed. And the way they were able to weave in the actual short stories from the book into this cool new legend of, Sarah Bellows and how she used to write and tell these scary stories way back when, and they would, kill people and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really cool way to, invigorate, the original source material of the original books. And there was also a really cool mystery that was kind of laid out, that was kind of weaved into it too, and that was really cool, stuff like that always really keeps me engaged and invested in movies like this, so that was definitely a big plus for me. Alright, so let's talk about the cast for a minute. I really feel like the entire cast did a really solid job, but for me, the two standout performances was Zoe Collette and I think his name is Michael Garza, and they played Stella and Ramon in the movie. I really think that they did pretty much the best job in the movie. They really carried the movie for me, as a whole. And the backstories they gave those characters, I won't give it away here, but they really got a really interesting backstory, each one of them, that really added a nice amount of depth to their characters. It wasn't just, kids that, just getting into trouble and stuff like that. You could really feel a certain amount of emotion, with both of them. They have their own separate issues and their own problems that they're working out. And, with them dealing with this, crazy situation of, trying to, not die, it was really cool to see them kind of go through that and, kind of come out as better people because of that. So, that was definitely another major positive thing from this movie that I really enjoyed. Alright, so, another thing that I was really impressed by was the way they were able to do the practical effects mixed in with the CG effects when it came to, the monsters and stuff like that. It's very rare that you're able to see a good combination of the two, between CG and practical effects. But I think that they did a really good job in melding the two together. A lot of the actual monster effects were practical effects. They just kind of touched it up a little bit with CGI, I could tell. And there were bits and pieces that looked a little more CGI than, you could definitely tell, yeah, that definitely is CGI, I can tell. But overall, they made the creatures, just really disturbing and, very frightening, and freaking, specifically, if you're familiar with the story, The Dream, that whole sequence of the movie just freaked me out, the whole idea of, if you ever have one of those dreams where, you're being chased by something, and no matter what you do, you, can't get away from it, and, it's weird, you can't get yourself to wake up, and, this thing that's coming after you, whatever it is in your dream, just keeps getting closer and closer. So, seeing that play out in this movie, and when you go see this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it, so keep that in mind. It was a very frightening scene. It was just so disturbing the way it was shot, and, yeah, it was just awesome. The scares in this movie were just right on point for me. One of the last things I really dug about this movie isn't really about the movie, but just a thought that came to me after watching the movie. And that is, this movie really feels like a good way to introduce kids to horror movies, it's not too crazy to where it's going to, like, traumatize a young kid that, like, they'll never want to see a horror movie again. But it's relatable enough and scary enough to keep the kids invested, like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? You know, and freaking... I really feel like that's a good thing, you know, because like I said, I grew up with the original books, and, you know, I used to watch Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark when I was a kid. You know, I couldn't get enough of that kind of stuff when I was a kid, and, you know, that led me to watching, you know, Evil Dead 2 when I was really young, and The Shining when I was really young, and, the, you know, Pet Sematary, and I just ate up horror movies when I was a kid, and it was because of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series and other things that were, you know, were geared for kids, but were scary. So a movie like this, if you're, you know, an adult horror fan, you have kids, and you're like, oh, I want my kids to love horror movies, definitely take them to go see this movie. And one more thing about this movie that I thought was really interesting. I feel like this is like an instant Halloween classic, because, mild spoiler, but this movie takes place just around Halloween. And you really get that kind of Halloween spooky vibe from this movie. I feel like, honestly, I kind of feel like this movie should have just came out on Halloween. I think it would have been perfect. But I can definitely tell you right now that when this movie comes out on Blu-ray, I'm absolutely going to be buying it, and it's going into my rotation for Halloween horror movie night, you know what I mean? You know, this is right up there with stuff like Evil Dead 2 and The Shining and, you know, the Halloween movies, obviously, but this is definitely an instant classic for Halloween movie night. So yeah, overall, I think if you're around my age and you grew up reading these books, I think you're really going to dig what they did here. And if you're younger and you're watching this and you never read the books and you're seeing the trailers and, you know, you thought it was kind of interesting looking, you want to check it out, definitely check it out. And with all that being said, I have no problem giving this movie 4.5 out of 5. Well, alright guys, that's it for me today. If you guys like what you see, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. If you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, the hashtag is Adam_Onslaught1. And yeah, see you guys in the next video.